Now that we have the Q-line edits drawn and initialized, we can start putting values into them from this net class. So we're going to go into the net and collect data and put them in the Q-line edits. And we're going to do that from inside this paint event method, because this method is called several times a second. So if you print here, it basically runs this method many times. So we can just like put a update line edits here, and then we can be sure that this method was going to be called many times. And we're not sending in the Q painter here because we're not painting anything. We're just gonna produce some strings and put them in the window. So yeah, you don't need the painter for that. So we'll begin by doing the first layer. We can begin by declaring it actually. We need some synapses to work with. So we take the synapses between layer 0 and layer 1. And for both the neurons in layer 0, we're gonna update the inputs. First we need to get the inputs from the net, so get input, it's right here. We need a neuron to get it from, and we take this neuron here, we take it the first, or yeah, layer 0 and the index of the neuron, and then we need to set the text in a certain Q-line edit, and we have these Q-line edits here, like that's these ones, this one and this one, and they're in a list here. So the first index is going to be the Q-line edit, and the second one is the actual object, or no, yeah, this is the index and this is the object, because the way we have initialized them here is that yeah, we have an index and we have then a an object. In this case you don't actually need an index because you only have like 2, or and you can actually just write the first one if you want to get the first, but I think it's a bit dangerous to do it that way, because so it's kind of nice to have a known index that you can use. And then since Q-line edits only deal with the strings, we have to convert the input to the string, and then we're done. Outputs. So we get an output from a neuron, and neuron, and we take it from the index, and then we're gonna update this Q-line edit here. And yeah, actually I might have initialized this in a different way. I'll check it out right now. And yeah, because here we actually wrote the outputs as like this, so this is not going to work. I mean, it doesn't make sense to have different ways. I'm just going to put this in here. So yeah, you have to go up to this and put in an index here too. It makes more sense to have the same way of doing the inputs and outputs. So yeah, we put it in a string, and we're also gonna do a rounding of the number here so that it doesn't become super big and like overflows this Q-line edit. So I'm gonna put it to 3 here, 3 decimal places. Let's see if this works. So the inputs have been loaded here and the outputs have been loaded here. Actually, it's happening so fast we just can't see it, but they're gathering the info like several times a second. We're gonna round this number here because we can't assume that the inputs we get are rounded. And the weights, we can do them now. There are 8 weights in total, so we can use this index here. So the synapses that are between layer 0 and layer 1, they are identifiable by a double index. So this is like the pointer to the neuron on the left, or I mean this is the index to the neuron on the left, and this is the index to the neuron on the right. So that way we can identify them, and then we get the attribute weight, and now we can update the line edit. Yep, we have loaded them. Great stuff. So now let's try to do the second layer. We're not gonna do the sum of the weights here because we haven't actually created those objects in the net yet, so we'll wait a bit with that. I'll just copy paste this whole thing. So this is between layer 1 and layer 2, and there are 4 neurons in the layer 1. Here we have to write a 1 instead of a 0. Here it's 1. It's 1. Here we don't have to use a nested loop because we only have four weights, 1 for each neuron. This is not indented correctly, so move this one back one step. We have to do this into 1 here because it's layer 1, and yeah, now let's do the weights. I'm actually not sure how this is done in the initialization, so let's go in and look here. First layer, here we have 2 indexes. Second layer, only 1 index. So yeah, we're only doing this operation on like using 1 index. We don't need 2 indexes, but let's for clarity's sake put another index there so that there's no messing up. We use 2 indexes there as well, like this. And now we have to change this to 0. So let's see if it works. I'm actually not sure about how these actually look. So we have a set of synapses in the net here, and then we have done a horrible mistake here. This should be layer 1 to layer 2. Let's do the third layer now. Copy the second one. We don't need any synapses here. We're just gonna run it on 1 node. There's gonna be a 2 here, 1 there. no weights. And let's check the initialization again to see that this is right. Yeah, so here we have 2 indexes, but here we don't. So let's put it in. Oh yeah, here we have to change this to 2. Yep, inputs and outputs loaded here. We'll do the expected value here and the error later, as well as a bunch of other Q-line edits. Like, I don't even know how we're going to do the delta weights, because there's supposed to be another box like next to the weights here, which is like delta weights. But maybe I'll just create a button next to them, and then when I click it, I'll open it up. Yeah, stuff to decide later. But for now, it would be really cool if we could have a button like over here somewhere, where if we press it, we would load 2 inputs from a text file and replace these default values that we got when we created the neurons. So there's a number of things you need to do to get that, and we can begin by creating a text file. So I'll open up my notepad, and we're making an XOR gate. So I'll do the text file like this. There's a bunch of other ways of doing it, but I'll do it like this. So we write what type of input it is first, and we write a 1 here and another 1 because there's two inputs, and then we write the output, which is a 0. And yeah, the XOR gate works like this. So we're gonna have 4 different types. So if we have 0, 1 here, if we have an odd input, the output is going to be 1, and if it's an even input, the output is going to be 0. And then we're just going to have a bunch of these things in the text file, just like going down here. But we're going to start with just 1, and I'm going to change this to not be 1 and 0, like a binary thing here, because the neural network is essentially it is a continuous float value machine, and I get kind of nervous when I see like an integer 0 like this, or a 1. I feel better when you have inputs like this. So we'll start with this, and then we can change it later. I'm now going to save this text file into the same directory as the project. So in PyCharm, I usually do like this. Show and explore. Get whatever address the project has here, and then just put it in here. So this is where it needs to be. And I'm going to name this my training data file. And now in PyCharm we can see it appear here. So now we have the text file. And now we're going to create the buttons. So we'll go into the controller here. And I'm going to write this here. So we're going to call this load inputs button, and that's going to be a Q push button. And then we need to connect it to something. What happens when we click this button? So we're going to connect it to something, and here we have to have a function, and I'm going to call this function initialize and draw next inputs, because that's pretty much what we're doing. We're not actually drawing with a painter, but yeah, I'll just try to. And yeah, then we have to write that function. But we can start by writing the or we need to like set the geometry and stuff of it. So basically we're gonna have a bunch of buttons here, and after all these buttons have been created, we're gonna call this initialize buttons, and this is like where all the geometry is gonna be set for them. So I'll put it like I don't know, put it like here, I don't know. Then we just set the geometry of this one, and I'm gonna set this to 10, 500, 160. And then we also have to set the text of the button. I'll just write load in for load inputs, and then we also have to do this function here that actually collects the data from the network, and I'll put it here. Yeah, so now we have a button here. A text file. We need to somehow translate all this info into Python objects that we can work with. So I will create a new Python file here called training data, and this is going to be a class. We can begin by opening the text file, and yeah, the name of the text file was my training data file.txt. And now we're just gonna write a method here called get next inputs. So we're just gonna get the first two inputs basically. We'll begin by reading a line. Read line. And then we need to separate the values within this line. And they're separated by a semicolon, like this. And then we're going to return the values here, and we're going to just put in number 1, or this is like the first input. 0 here is the type, if you remember. 0 is going to be this thing, 1 is going to be this thing, and 2 is going to be this thing. And we won't actually write anything more for now. We'll put in the get outputs later, and I might have to change some stuff here to make it work, because we have to know what line it is. So maybe we'll have to put in like a check that checks what type it is and sees that it is an input or output. We'll do that later. Okay. We can now import this training data into the controller. And training data. and we need to initialize it in the main here. So we do that here. And then we're going to write this initialize and draw next inputs. So we get the next inputs, and then we're going to set the inputs in the net. And we need to do the same for the second one. And now we don't actually need to do anything more, because we just change the data in the network, and then this update line edits should just take care of everything else. So you don't have to do anything with the queue line edits here. So let's see if it works. Yeah. So the first layer here, when we load the inputs, we're actually not going to do anything with these inputs. We're not going to run them through a transfer function as in the other layer here. So we're just going to latch them into the outputs here. So we'll write that now. So I'm just going to copy paste these two things, and I'm just going to change this to output instead of input. So now when we press load inputs, it's actually going to load them like this.